Hello, we have for the Blanket Men, we have a Proteus, 2 Harbinger, 2 Hurricane, a Guardian, a Myrmidon, a Stiletto and a Jaguar. It looks like Trisbec's not coming through, so on the Ronin side we have 2 Tangu, 2 Nighthawk, 2 Drakes, Stiletto, Tyrannus and another Stiletto. The match is underway.
Can you hear me, T?
I can indeed.
Okay, well, this is Krovan rejoining you again. I guess I'll be teaming up with you on this one through the audio issues now.
Excellent. Well, for the moment we have the Blanket Men's Guardian taking shield damage. He's obviously on his armour, probably going to stay there a little bit. Just a question now of whether or not he can hold together. No damage appreciable on the Ronin side at this point.
Yeah, that Guardian, I don't see any rep drones around him. We have seen most teams, they do utilize repair drones to keep their logistics ships up. That doesn't appear to be the case here. But at the same time, the Guardian is hanging in there at about 90% armor. We've got one of the Nighthawks now for the Ronin has started to take damage. He's down to about 80% shields already.
Yeah, the Guardian's holding about 80% armour at this point. I saw the Stiletto actually tackled the Tyrannus and ended up with no shields left, so I don't know whether that was a wise idea, but he seems to be holding in there for the Blanket Men. Tyrannus and Nighthawk, the only two ships on the Ronin side to be taking any damage at this point. Neither of them particularly bothered by it at the moment. The Nighthawk has still got half of its shields left and is about to reach its peak recharge.
Yeah, indeed. I just checked out that Tyrannus. He does have blasters on, so that Stiletto probably is best advised to keep away. That Nighthawk, however, is webbed, and so they are going to have as much time as they need to try to bring him down, and it looks like he's getting down to about 25%. He may be passing his peak recharge, and if he can't hang in there before Ronin are able to take out any of the DPS on the Blanket Men side, then this could get ugly very quickly.
I've seen the Nighthawks actually is webbed, and he's got a Harbinger and a Hurricane at least sitting right on top of him, which is not a good place for him to be at this point, and he's gone. Okay, so we have some damage being taken on the Blanket Men's side. The Proteus has got a small amount of shield damage. It looks like one of the Hurricanes has been putting into armour, and it looks like that's now the main focus. The Guardian is locally repping. He's holding back at about 80 to 90% armour at the moment, so the Blanket Men have got no problems there. But the Hurricane doesn't look like he's able to keep up with the damage that's been put onto him. Meanwhile, on the Ronin side, we still have the 2 Tangus, the Nighthawk, 2 Drakes, 2 Stilettos and a Tyrannus, which are quite happily putting damage into this Blanket Men Hurricane. And Gianna Anno is going to drop very shortly, as it doesn't look like the armour is going to be prepped fast enough for him to keep up. It seems the damage has slowed a little bit. It looks like the Guardian is able to keep the Hurricane up just that little bit longer. Meanwhile, one of the Nighthawks for the Ronin is now in half shields. So it's now a race between the Ronin Nighthawk and the Blanket Men's Hurricane. Although at this point the Hurricane is in structure and is probably going to drop very shortly. Obviously that's quite a high DPS ship, and it might allow the Nighthawk to recover a little bit as well.
Alright, this is R0NIN checking in. It looks like the Nighthawk has actually been webbed and is being held. Oh, there he goes.
Yeah, we've lost the Stiletto for the Blanket Men as well. And so yes, now have the Proteus, 2 Harbingers, Hurricane, Guardian, Myrmidon and Jaguar for the Blanket Men. As we see another Interceptor go down on the Ronin side, we have for Ronin left 2 Tangu, 2 Drakes, a Stiletto and a Tyrannus.
Alright, sorry about all the audio issues here, guys. We're doing our best. And it does look like that Guardian's still holding up pretty well. He's remote repping his Hurricane buddy, or his Harbinger buddy here, doing a whole bunch of DPS. It looks like they're starting to take on Braggle in the the Ronin Drake, who is dropping into about half shields now.
Much as I like the Ronin team, I'm not a big fan of Drakes in the tournament either, and it looks like in this case the Harbingers are going to be putting out a fearsome amount more DPS than that Drake is able to handle, as his shields are being melted away by all of this lovely laser damage.
And there is a lot of it. Jay Johnson from the Blanket Men dropping into about half armor in his Harbinger. It looks like he's receiving some pretty heavy fire. The question is, can he drop this Drake beforehand? It looks like that's going to happen without any issues. That Guardian maybe getting a couple reps on him.
Yeah, and I've been informed that the two stilettos that we lost earlier were actually for boundary violations, so I don't know whether one deliberately drove out of range and took the other one with him, or whether they just didn't really realise that there's a 125 radius limit to the arena. Meanwhile, Jay Johnson's Harbinger is hanging in there quite well. I'm assuming that Uki in the Guardian is able to get reps onto him, no problem at all, and he's going to not be taking any more damage at this point. Just a slight bit of armor here and there, and you can see it going back up again. Meanwhile, on the Ronin team, we have the two Tangus, which haven't been touched yet. One Drake is still okay with a sliver of shields starting on that. I don't know whether they've actually get into range yet. Meanwhile, the Stiletto and the Tyrannus just taken a huge chunk of armor damage, and it looks like they are going to drop that Tyrannus so that the Blanket Men are no longer tackled.
Yeah, Tulek is having a hard time in his Tyrannus for the Ronin team keeping alive. Looks like he's local repping up a little bit here and there, but he's dipping into structure as he goes, and he could go any minute now. Meanwhile, Jay Johnson going pretty fast in his, I believe, triple tri-marked heavy-plated Harbinger, because he's probably micro-warp driving, but only doing about 729 meters a second. Getting into range here of, looks like another Drake, and we've lost the Tyrannus for the Ronin team. So just a quick recap, we've still got two Harbingers for the Blanket Men, a Hurricane, Myrmidon, Proteus, Guardian, and a Jaguar. And just fill us in, T, what do we got left for Ronin?
The Ronin, we have a Tangu which is now in some trouble. He's got some shield damage going down, nearly 50% shields. The second one is fine for the Ronin. The Drake untouched and the Stiletto in armor.
Yeah, that Proteus has gotten into range. It looks like they've webbed this this Tangu and are hitting about as hard as they possibly can. These are pulse-fitted Harbingers, so they're getting right up in range and probably switching to high damage, short-range ammo.
Yeah, and that Proteus is now sitting on top of the Tangu. Not a very good thing, because I am pretty certain he'll be blaster fitted, and that Tangu is going to be melting in very short order. Below 50% shields now. They don't have any logistics going on there, so I think the Ronin are going to lose this Tangu very, very quickly. On the Blanket Men side, we've got the Proteus sitting there on top of the Harbinger, the Tangu for the Ronin. Harbinger has been holding up quite nicely, so Jay Johnson there being repped up by the Guardian. The second Harbinger's got some shield damage, not really anything to worry about there. The Hurricane untouched, Guardian is fine now as well. The Tangu, however, for the Ronin is in serious trouble. His shields are gone. Any second now he's going to be taking huge chunks of armor damage, as not only is the Proteus now sitting on top of him, but is also one of the Harbingers, and he's gone. So
Alright, and it looks like Nestor here for the Blanket Men running around in his Jaguar is actually an armor-tanking Jaguar. So we'd hope and assume that he's using those mid-slots for extra E warfare. Unfortunately, at this range, I can't see exactly any effects. But he is getting repped up by Uki and that Guardian and kept alive despite taking some light damage from missiles occasionally. Looks like the Drake for... looks like Jerkas for the Ronin is actually shooting at Nestor and his Jaguar.
yeah, the Stiletto for the Ronin took a bit more damage, but is holding at about 10% armor. It's taking a little bit more damage now here and there. Meanwhile, there's no significant damage on the Blanket Men side. All of their armor is fully healed up, as you'd expect from a Guardian on the team. The Drake for the Ronin is now coming towards half shields, and I think they've probably got him tackled at this point. Yeah, it looks like it. I just see the Proteus is now in range, as are two Harbingers, and they're just opening up on that Drake.
Yeah, and so is the Mailman's Hurricane getting into range, and they're just hitting him as hard as they can. They've got him webbed, they've got him, I believe, scrambled as well, and it looks like he's switched to FOF missiles because he's just shooting at basically anything that's in close range at this point. So it looks like this Drake is not going to be too effective anymore in this fight. Dropping quickly, about to hit armor, so Jerkass for the Ronin team is, you know, pretty much down and out, and that leaves it to Princess Komi and the Tengu, and Araka left in a stiletto for the Ronin. Meanwhile, plenty left on the Blanket Men team.
Yeah, Blanket Men are, yeah, they've got their Proteus, 2 Harbingers, Hurricane, Guardian, Myrmidon and Jaguar. They've lost a couple of ships, nothing really significant. Unfortunately, the Ronin have lost that Drake, or fortunately, depending on your point of view. So we now have just the Tengu and, well, part of a stiletto. It seems to be regenerating its shields, but it's got some structure damage.
Yeah, Arika in the stiletto for the Ronin team has been motoring around the outside of the fight. Looks like he's got some drones chasing him, but they aren't really hitting him. So it looks like they're going to try and just deny a few points with that stiletto rather than get him back into range. He probably isn't going to be too effective left at this point. While he is autocannon fit, there's not a whole lot of damage that a stiletto is going to do. Really, it's a high-speed war platform for tackling, for tracking, disrupting, stuff like that.
Indeed, and at the moment the Proteus burning into range of that Tangu for the Ronin, with the wingmen of the 2 Harbingers and the Hurricane. Interesting to say that this team, the Ronin, were actually apparently the RUR team from last year. They are going to be beaten by what is apparently the Atlas B team.
Yeah, that's what we're being told, is that this is actually an Atlas B team, the Blanket Men. And it's a little bit sad to see him lose, but you know, that's kind of what happens when you bring Drakes to the field. They, you know, everyone's going to hate me, but I see better choices. Tengus are great, Nighthawks are great, Drakes just don't have the DPS, don't have the maneuverability, and don't do anything but die slowly. And as I say that, it looks like Akia in the stiletto has actually gotten himself webbed, so it may be not a whole lot longer for that stiletto as the Tengu drops as well.
Yep. And the loss of that Tengu means, oh, and the stiletto has just popped as well. So we now have a victory for the Blanket Men and a loss for the Ronin. And with that, we hand you back to Soundwave.